Welcome, everyone. We are sorry for the delay, but we are so happy to have you here for our fifth episode of the Technically Brilliant Show presented by the Den Black Film Festival and Black Public Media. My name is Ebony Johnson, and I serve as the Director of Outreach and Education for the Den Black Film Festival. And thank you again for joining us during our lunch hour sessions as we connect with Black artists and filmmakers and execs to discuss the use of virtual reality, augmented reality, and other technologies to tell Black stories. We've had a great past couple of weeks, really a month, of shows thus far. And remember, if you ever miss any episode or any links that we pop into the episode, you can check out our episode guide, which I'll add into the comments. I'm really excited about our guest today. This is our first executive on the show. We are bringing on Mr. Jake Sally, and he is currently the COO of Jodo AR, formerly head of development for Riot, and is serving this year as a juror for Tribeca in their immersive narrative programming. So I'll bring on our lovely moderator, Black Public Media's emerging tech director, Miss Lisa Osborne, to introduce our guest. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Ebony. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for that great intro. And I can't believe we've already hit a month. That's crazy.
I know. We're doing it. Keep on.
Yes, we're doing it. Halfway through. All right, let's bring on Jake so we can jump right in. Hey, Jake.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I feel like you've got a much classier background than I do, but it is in the curse of working in a one bedroom with my fiance. But I'm doing great. It's a really nice day outside. So
it's okay. It's okay. We're all used to the, the realness of the fridge situation. And this did not come without a lot of work. So let's be clear that it evolved. It used to be like be behind a little patch of wall. So like the fact that this is all set up now and ready to go for anything is, a 1 year of work, Jake. So yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to talk to you today because we've known each other for a couple of years now, and you have a new position with Jodo, which is an AR company. But I wanted to find out a little bit about your how you even got into the industry, because as Ebony said, you're the first executive we've had. And so could you tell us what did you major in or train to do in college? And then what was your actual first interactive job?
Yeah. So I think what's really interesting about the interactive and immersive space is everyone kind of comes in sideways. Very few people are coming in of like, hey, like I grew up, I want to do this. Like when I was in college, this was not a job. It was like barely an industry.
Right.
So, I think my training, because I was an English major, so
I knew that was coming. So I was like, I feel like he's like English or poli-sci is about to come out of his mouth.
Yeah, so English major. I think the things that prepared me for this job were I played a ton of video games as a kid. So I spent a lot of time immersing myself in these
market research
in these worlds. And I also read a ton of fantasy. So this collision of interactive media and fantasy worlds has kind of like led me, I think personally, when I do my reflection over this year of quarantine of like, how did I end up here? There's a lot of that, but I also, so when I
got out of well-versed, I would say, in tropes, the standard 3-act structure for, whether it's in a video game or a fantasy novel, how you unfold a story, how you tell a story.
Yeah, and I think honestly for video games, it's like the open world nature of it. Like it's never, for me, the moment I got Oculus touch controllers in my hand and could suddenly move around the space, for a lot of people, it was really discombobulating. You're like, oh, I've got like the headset, I can look anywhere, I can move my hands. For me, I was like, this is the interface I've been waiting for my entire life.
How many years ago was that? Like,
so this was 2014. I graduated in 2012. I moved out to Hollywood. I worked at a talent agency, and then I worked at Hasbro Studios on their TV and film side. And I went to an event, a small event, put on a VR headset, as I think most people in the space. It was like mind blown. Gotta do this. I quit my job at Hasbro, and I was like, I'm
That's
not
a bit
taking
extreme,
another.
Jake.
Super extreme, but because it was like, it basically was okay. So Oculus got acquired by Facebook for $1 billion. I put on the VR headset. I was like, this is where everything's going. I need to get in this right now. So I quit my job, and I was like, I'm not taking another job until I can work in VR. So that was kind of like my transition point into the space.
So how long were you a waiter during the transition?
Zero waiter time. I quit in November of 2014 and went into winter break, and I was like, I don't have a job coming back. I went home to Denver, and I had been doing some like slow networking around it, and I was seriously incredibly fortunate that it paid off, because I think there were probably 6 VR jobs in all of Los Angeles. So
At that time, yeah, absolutely.
At that time, yeah. So I got one of them.
Nice. So what was your first VR job then? Your first true immersive job?
Yeah. So my first job was I was a coordinator at 2-Bit Circus, which at the time they were kind of like Imagineers for hire. So they had like a really big engineering team, and they would get hired by different companies, usually corporations or state governments, to come in and make something fantastical for like a 2-day event, like at a CES. And so they had a VR division. There was like 5 or 6 people, and they were doing basically everything you weren't supposed to do in VR. They were doing that, which was honestly really nice, because for me, it completely removed the dogma of these are the things you can and can't do. And it was really, if you have the engineering prowess and are curious enough, you can do anything. And I loved that mentality. So that, and it kind of, you see that in a lot of.
Do you think you had an appetite for experimentation before that, or do you think working at 3-Bit Circus kind of, incited that or dug it up, something that was latent in you already?
I think it dug it up. I mean, coming out of the talent agency in Hasbro, very cut and dry. You were like, this is my 40-year trajectory. 2-Bit Circus was anything is possible. Like anytime I, as a coordinator, would come in with a creative, usually the process, I would meet with different creatives from more or less traditional Hollywood, get them super hyped about VR. They'd be like, hey, what about this? Can we do this? And I would go and we'd talk with the engineers. The engineers never, ever said no. The answer was always, well, there's 3 ways we could do this. And I loved that. And it definitely has translated into the work I've done and made it for me. Like there's always a way. There's always a way to make the project.
So you're one of the type of producer where you don't shut down ideas. You're very much like, let's discuss it.
Yeah. I mean, over time, I've become more of a dream killer, but I think there is definitely this first Man VR project, 6-week turnaround. Crazy, insane about it. Yeah. I don't know if we shouldn't have done it, but we all sat down and we're like, this is going to be extremely tight. And it ended up getting nominated for an Emmy. And I think it speaks a lot to the teams you put together, because you're like, look, you're going to be in the trenches with these people. It's going to get scary, and something is definitely going to go wrong. Probably multiple things are going to go wrong. Okay. So how do you kind of keep the momentum going? And I think there's usually a breaking point where it's like, hey, we could kill the project, or we can kind of push through this and feel really good that we're going to get it to the finish line.
So would you say then that resiliency is something you need to be a great immersive producer?
You have to be resilient. You have to be very comfortable learning all the time. Again, I knew a ton about, like you were saying, kind of tropes and interactive mechanisms, but again, English major, no technical background whatsoever. And when I was at 2-Bit Circus, I must have asked the engineers 100 questions a day. And they were super stupid questions in retrospect, all the way through to like wildly technical questions. And usually when I'm building out the team, whether it was at Riot or now at Jodo, my favorite thing in the world is someone who asks a lot of questions. And I always take the time to be like, look, if you want to rapid fire question at me for half an hour, I'm 100% in. the moment an employee stops asking questions of either the technical team or their manager, something is wrong, because it means they're not pushing themselves and learning. And the space is, it's stabilized a ton, but there's still lots and lots of room for people to be learning stuff.
So tell us about Jodo. What is the business model, and can you give us a quick overview?
Yeah. Let me share my screen real quick. Ignore the infinite tabs I have on my screen. Okay, can everyone see? Can you see this?
I can now see that, yes.
Great. So fundamentally, Jodo is creating magical experiences of the future. And the way we do this is we have a mobile app for iOS currently that allows you to do a couple things. First and foremost, we create photoreal holograms of different musical artists and performers that you can put into your real world space in augmented reality. You can collect these holograms, as you see on the left. You can place them and capture video and pictures with them. And then we've started building out these much more interactive, we're basically calling them interactive music videos.
Okay, I was actually going to bring that up later to say we'll get there, but yes, I was going to use the term music video specifically to talk about the evolution of the industry.
Oh, so much to talk about. So we use this process called volumetric capture. We're using 106 cameras all around the performer to capture them. And this is really interesting because we're not creating a 3D model of the person and then animating it. It's actually a video. So it's a 3-dimensional video file that ultimately is exported as an MP4, which, again, this technology, you're capturing a gigabyte of data per second.
I was going to ask about the file size as well.
Yeah. We have a long-term partnership with this company, Metastage, which does the volumetric capture with us. They work with Microsoft. So Microsoft has been able to compress down these video files into something that's manageable for a mobile phone. We're at this really interesting inflection point where mobile phones are finally able to do what we've been doing at film festivals for years. So these usually end up being, for these kind of like 15 to 30 second clips, somewhere between 30 to 60 megabytes, depending on how big the file is, how many people are in it. And so the end result is what we're about to see here, which is a hologram that looks photoreal, that's placed into your real world space. It's got shadows. It's, you can change the holograms that are there. You can change the size of the holograms. We've started adding the ability to do different textures, so the hologram can look like it's made out of gold, or it can look like it's made out of gummy bears.
And how old is the company? Like, when did it start?
Yep. So Jodo is about 2 years old, but the team has been together working since they were sophomores in high school. So about 5 years of experience working in augmented reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suddenly feel very dumb and very underachieving.
It's okay.
I didn't invent anything in high school.
I mean, the team, I wasn't doing anything remotely like this in college. But so the result is that you can put these holograms in real world space, right? And so all of that.
Why the focus on the music industry specifically? Like, how did that come about? And
it feels very natural. Musicians are always, I think, are like largely drivers of culture. Here, we'll stay on this so we don't confuse people. They're massive drivers of culture and are very, very familiar with the use of social media, which we'll get into business model piece of it in a little bit. But so for us, we were really focused on how do we make augmented reality holograms accessible to the general public who may or may not know anything about augmented reality, volumetric capture, don't even necessarily care about any of those things, but would use the technology if it was accessible and easy to use. And so that's been a lot of our driving mission, is how do we make it so that with 3 taps, you can have a hologram of Little Nas X in your room, and 1 tap later, it can be up on your TikTok. And so we've been doing a ton of that, and that's been leading into an expansion of what we do, which is moving more into real-time interactivity and narrative. And so I guess we'll talk a little bit later about the music video piece of it, but I want to start showing what happens when we move from holograms that can be posted on your social media into some gamification layers of these. And what does the use of holograms look like when it goes beyond simply tap and place the hologram in your space? So we'll show this little teaser of an experience we just did.
That looks like a scene from The Conjuring.
Yeah, so it's this band Palais Royale, they're awesome. They like immediately got what they could do with holograms, and kind of were like, honestly, really helped push us beyond a lot of the ways we were thinking about it.
Right.
But this experience we did called Curse of Calypso is like a 10 to 15 minute interactive experience where you get to interact with the different holograms of the band and do little mini games that unlock the next part of the music video. And it's really interesting because this is really a medley. So the formula that we're using is we work with an artist, we take 3 to 4 clip pieces of different songs, put them all together, string them all together, and add moments of interactivity in between. So I just want to quickly show, like, here's an example of the hologram, and the hologram's using a spray can, right? And they ask you to say, look, you take over the spray can. We want you painting on the wall. And yes, you can paint on the minigame itself, but the spray can itself is really a tool that can be used anywhere.
Right.
So you can put it on your own wall, and that triggers the performance. So here in a second, we're about to see the hologram bursting out of the wall.
Got it.
Delivering their song.
So do you have like a specific age group, since you have an industry that is a priority industry? Within that industry, are you focused on a particular genres of music or particular age group of user that you're trying to target?
So I think we've been doing a lot of testing, right? Like we probably shot 100 holograms in 2 months just to start refining our technical pipeline so we can deliver these faster. From a demographic perspective, a lot of our core audience is definitely in the kind of like 12 to 18-year-olds.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
It's interesting because we have kind of different collectives come depending on the artist, right? So right now it's very geared towards the value proposition is someone who's a fan of this band comes to Jodo because they want to make a social media post that includes the band in their post. With the release of Curse of Calypso, it's kind of expanded the type of person that is interested in this, because there's, yes, someone that might be interested in the band Palais Royale, but now there's also another group of people that are interested in interactive mobile experiences, AR or otherwise. But you know, AR definitely helps, but even just like this kind of casual mobile gamer that's like, look, I may never have heard of Palais Royale, but I'm really interested in the interactivity. I want to have this kind of like Conjuring-esque experience.
Right.
Let's do this.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I have to say, again, working in the space for like 6 years now, done a fair amount of augmented reality, usually headset based. What is possible on mobile now is mind blowing.
Right.
So from a business model,
what do you think in terms of the music industry? So say if augmented reality is ushering in a new phase of music videos, and Jodo is at the forefront of that, then what skills would somebody need to become a AR music video producer or director?
Everyone on planet Earth that is even remotely interested in being involved in entertainment, period, don't care if it's music, film, television, needs to be game engine literate. So
okay, what does that mean?
So game engines are the software that is used to build experiences, whether they're interactive or passive. We see these are the backbones of things like Fortnite. The two biggest ones currently are Unreal Engine, which is owned by Epic Games, and that's what's used to create Fortnite. And then we also have Unity, which is used to create all sorts of different experiences and a lot of mobile experiences, which is, for us, really, really helpful. But why this is important is game engine technology is now being used, yes, in video games, which is, you know, the fundamental use case for them, but they are now being used more and more to deliver content, to do real-time visual effects, so people can see instantly what the visual effects looks like with live action people. It's been used for things like The Lion King, Ready Player One. Also, TV shows like Game of Thrones, The Mandalorian.
Right.
If you
Mandalorian
care,
issued a really great behind the scenes video showing their workflow with their post people on set with all their laptops tweaking, in real time, like you're talking about. So it was really useful. I sent it to a film person, sent it to me, and then we all had a conversation about how the whole entire workflow is being disrupted and reinvented.
Yeah, we're in the middle of, I'm doing a short film that's half live action, half virtual production using Unreal Engine. And again, as someone who's done a fair number of VR projects and AR projects that use different game engines, still mind blowing to see how it's being used for TV and film. If I could go back in time, if I can give people one piece of advice, learn the fundamentals of a game engine, even if you're never going to.
We have a question from Heidi, one of the viewers, and she says, so where can I actually learn about game engine technology?
Yep. Go to unrealengine.com or unity.com. They both have, and this is what's great, honestly, is you're like, it's not a black box. They have online classes, they have documentation, there are more resources available for these game engines than, it's truly crazy how much documentation education they have for it. If you're currently in school, a lot of both Unreal and Unity have done outreach to different universities and are either supplying the software for free. What the software is free, but supplying additional assets that you can use, or specifically classes that you can take, even sometimes for course credit.
Cool. So we're almost approaching our end time. Any last thoughts on what you think we're going to see in the next 6 months with the use of AR for storytelling and specifically holographs?
The next 6 months?
To throw you like totally easy.
No. I'm trying to. So I think we're going to see a lot more with the rollout of the 5G network and the ability to stream higher, heavier assets. I think we're going to see a lot more holograms delivered to web AR platforms. So you being able to just using your web browser, experience augmented reality, specifically with the use of holograms at higher fidelity.
No headset AR basically is what you think is because of the 5G reaching a tipping point in the country. Mm-hmm. You're saying that basically things like being able to do augmented reality experiences in browser without needing a headset are going to start to take off.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be huge. I also think we're going to start seeing augmented reality that is much more dynamic, taking the inputs of your real world, whether it's the lighting conditions, where you're moving, all of those will be able to be fed into whatever device you're using and instantaneously change the type of content that you're seeing, augmenting your reality. And that is, again, cool, because normally your phone would just explode, was what would happen.
Right. It wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. So basically what you're describing is a type of mixed reality. I think in the past, recent past, we've been very focused on mixed reality, meaning VR plus the real world. And I think what you're describing is AR plus the real world. And that results in some sort of file or visual or experience that is a combination of, like you said, real world variables with some sort of software, that's augmenting the real world or, doing something with factoring in the real world elements. I'm like trying to find my words. Yeah. So I think it's dope to see that even the definition of mixed reality is changing because of 5G, as well as the evolution of the AR tools themselves have just gotten so much better compared to where they were like 2 years ago.
It is like, I would say even a year or two ago, if you're in high school or college or middle school and you want to work in this space, there's a very clear path. Okay. And I would say 2 or 3 years ago, there wasn't. There was when I was coming up, there wasn't even anyone who could tell you where to get a job, much less what programs you should use or what file size.
6 jobs in LA. Yeah.
It's very cool. What I wouldn't give to be young again, just
Jake, I'm for you as somebody who's 15, 20 years older than you. You are still. quickly describe, and then we're going to wrap up the workflow in terms of if we started shooting Jodo, and is there any kind of pre-production that needs to happen internally before you bring the artist to set to actually shoot them with is it 106? How many cameras?
106 cameras.
106 cameras. What does that workflow look like to complete my music video for my, my debut single that's coming out in 3 months?
3 months is a good timeline.
Okay.
It's still pretty tight, but there's a couple pieces. For us, the hologram capture, if you're doing it for a music video in particular, all the lyrics that you're singing, you probably know a good chunk of the performance. For us, we like to usually storyboard out what is the user flow going to look like. And if there are key moments of interactivity that we want to have happen, using those as anchors to say, look, this is going to be performance into interactivity, into performance, into an interactivity, which again, keeps it fresh and moving. The hologram capture itself is a 1-day process, so pretty quick. And then it's just about choosing like you would with film, what are your selects that are then going to be rendered out and used. And then there's a multi-month post-production process where we put it all together, build, like you saw that there was the spray can, so building that, what's the interactivity associated with that, stringing that all together, and then honestly, like a lot of time doing QA and polishing to not only, it's one thing to be like, here's a spray can, do the things. It's another to say, how can this feel like pretty organic and natural for you to be doing this thing? And that I think is the
rounds of QA do you do on each app or each experience?
Yeah, it's an ongoing process for the little moments. Once it's fully complete, we usually do 2 or 3 rounds of QA. It's a lot easier now that we're pretty focused on iOS.
So Android if I started, so you said 3 months is doable, but extremely quick. So what percentage of that 3 months would be post?
I would say 2 months of that is post.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Super helpful, Jake. Thank you so much for sharing with us how you got into immersive filmmaking to begin with. Congratulations on your successes in the last couple of years and on the new job as Chief Operating Officer at Jodo. And I really look forward to seeing what your company is going to do in the next 6 to 9 months. I think you guys are potentially going to really make a lot of noise. And I look forward to seeing you accomplish that. And have fun at Tribeca.
I can't wait. This is like the first festival. I mean, it's the first one that's coming back in this hybrid live virtual manner. So I'm really, really excited.
Are you flying to New York or are you going to do it remotely from Colorado?
Still undecided, which I know it starts very soon today. Yeah. So unclear. This is the life I'm living, unfortunately. I will definitely at least partially remote and then may fly in for some.
Okay. Got it. All right. Well, say hello to everybody for me. And thank you so much for joining us on the Technically Brilliant show. And best of luck with everything.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Next week, our guest is Lajanae McMillan, who is debuting her motion capture 2D production film on the side of the Brooklyn Library on June 23rd in New York. I can't wait to talk to her about her motion capture filmmaking process, and her piece is called Movement Portraits, which are motion capture portraits of dancers, choreographers, music producers, and other creative people, basically. So see you next week, Wednesday, when we are going to talk to Lajanae. Thank you.